Hey folks, I just want to spend a few minutes going over the grading criteria for the 3-minute pitch. But before I do that, I want to say thank you. Thank you all for your time and efforts that you put into getting your speeches into me and your patience in order for me to get the feedback and grading to you. Now, as far as the grading goes, I'm going to say probably the first step is to go back to that email that I sent out with the instructions on how to upload it to Flipgrid. On that, it has an area called Things to Consider. Now, Things to Consider are basically an appendage of the criteria for the rubric that we use that's also on your syllabus and embedded in that particular email. So on that, Things to Consider, it has things such as that the video needs to be in one take, mentioned in that email and in the lecture, et cetera, et cetera. The five commandments of the visual aids and like how to deal with your visual aids. Some of you guys have visual aids that dominated the picture and dwarfed you and whatnot. There's room for a point being taken off, et cetera, et cetera. So the first step, just kind of figuring out, well, how did I get a point off here or there? Go back to that email, run down that list, and you can pretty much see if there was any kind of infractions, if you will. The next thing is I'm going to try to make this video quick. So there's so much to say, but I'm just going to try to work in broad strokes. And there's that. Hopefully I'll answer anybody that has questions out there. Hopefully this answers it. So going back to this, this rubric right here, we got authenticity, clarity, structure, and speaking habits. The first one is authenticity. In broad strokes, basically that is, are you talking to me or are you talking at me? Are you talking to me? Are we having a relationship? Is there something that allows your authenticity to come over to me as a receiver? Or are you talking at me? And oftentimes, what happened with the speaker's relationship was closer to the paper rather than the person, that's room for a deduction right there. So some people just read off their entire script or whatever the case is and did that. They might have looked off to the side, or even if they had it right there, you got to build this relationship, and most of us are not trained in this area, but you got to build a relationship with that camera. That camera has got to become very, very intimate. Okay, so what you can do here is you can read your stuff here, blah, blah, blah. And then some people try to bring it over. But the thing is, you got to capture it here, and then you got to bring that dialogue right into the lens. And you got to build that relationship there. So oftentimes the number one disturbance of the authenticity it doesn't mean that you weren't an authentic person. It's just that the authenticity had a gap between you and the listener. Next is clarity, right? Clarity, not just point A, point B, and point C, right? Many of you were very clear on what you were saying, but did you take advantage of any of the use of language to accentuate your clarity? So I could give my story, and let's say I went to the grocery store and then I stopped at the gas station and then I came home and this is this, right? And that's fine. That's a solid 8 or maybe even a 9, right? But did you take advantage of onomatopoeia, symbolism, hyperbole, themes, any of those things that you infuse in there? Some of you did, and it worked out wonderfully, right? When able to do that. Did you have repetition in it or anything like that? I have a dream, right? And you say it 3 times, I have a dream, right? And the difference between black and white and the juxtapositions and the language comes alive so that the listener can paint the picture, right? Paint by numbers right along with you to accentuate the clarity. So there's a difference between, I'm just going to tell you the story. I got the grocery store, I got my gas, and I came over here. Great, solid, boom, you cleared the hurdle. Or am I going to elevate my speech by the use of themes and symbolism and hyperbole and et cetera, et cetera. So that's really the separation there, right? Structure, same thing, right? It's not just the structure of your speech, if that makes sense, but the speech structure, the opening statement, the main points, the sub-main points, transitional statements, and the conclusion. Each one of those in the structure of speeches has a particular function. For example, the opening statement needs to get your audience's attention, lead into the body of the speech, and build a rapport. So go back to your speeches and just look at those first 10, 15, 20 seconds and see if your opening statement is grabbing your audience by the egg rolls and say, listen to me, right? Just go back and listen to it, right? If it's doing anything else, then it's not your opening statement. The opening statements are the first words out of your mouth that starts your speech. And some of you did a great job, right? It was the winter of 1927 and my knees were frozen. I had to climb this way and do that. You got right 6 seconds in, I'm already right there. especially with the 3-minute pitch, time is of the essence. So we don't have a lot of time to lollygag. We have to get right into it. So go back and see if your speech in the opening statement, if it really does it. Did you create vivid images with your language, or did you hit me in the heart or in the gut with an emotion? Usually one of those two things is a great way for you to start off your speech. And then you can go down the line and use your own check and balances. Does my main points hit this? My BME strong? For those of you that were brave enough to use transitional statements, right? The highlight where I've been and the forecast where I'm going. That's what elevated your speech, because as a listener, if I hear something like Kevin Costner's movie Waterworld took a bath at the box office, I know that I'm going from one point to the next point, and I use images that are clear. I even use alliteration, bath at the box office. There's a certain bounce there that uses the transitional statement to glue, and so it's the speech GPS for my audience can get a full solidified vision of not only the clarity of my speech accentuated, but also the structure. So transitional statements played a big part. And then the last part, if your speech was story oriented, then you know that it is the narrative speech. The function of the narrative speech conclusion is to capture the essence, theme, and lesson. So go back and see how you closed your speech, and did it capture the essence, the theme, or lesson, right? So if it didn't do that, or sometimes many people did get there, but they only had about 8 seconds left in their speech. So what happened was it kind of was rushed a bit. So it was like, and that's the reason why I picked this particular thing for my speech. Or if it's the persuasive speech, the function of that persuasive conclusion is to close the deal. ABC, always be closing, right? So when we got there, it was like, so it'd be great to have your support, right? But you didn't give us the tools to support. You didn't say, here's my 1-800, the www dot, my phone number, this is my email, I'm available, I get back to people within 48 hours, et cetera, et cetera. For those of you that are in sales, understand the importance of being able to give your consumer the tools in order for them to take action. And any step that you put before them is further and further away that you get from closing that deal. So you can go back and take a look at your conclusion and say, was it rushed? Was I able to bridge it back in and come full circle with my entire speech? Did I have a clear call to action, and did I provide them with the tools in order for them to take that action, right? Lastly, speaking habits. Demonstrates the tools of delivery, your voice, your volume, your pitch, your tempo, articulation, et cetera, et cetera. Oftentimes this boils down to your enthusiasm, right? And the thing is that people have different enthusiasm. My enthusiasm might be too much for some people. Some other people are just laid back and chill. That's cool, right? That type of thing. But remember, you are in servitude to your audience. So what may be comfortable for you may not be at the elevated thing. We got to remember, we are in an elevated position as public speakers, right? We are put on a platform. As leaders, we are put on a platform. So we have to make a decision if we want to deal with mediocrity and live in our own comfort zone, or we're going to expand our container and be able to deliver more than what's expected because of my hired position. We have to make that decision. Do I want to be comfortable and this is it, this is how I roll, and this is how, whatever the case is, or am I going to have to step into it? Am I going to have to step into that Jesus or whatever kind of leader that comes to your mind role for you? So oftentimes in the enthusiasm that has something to do with it, staying away from it being monotone, also visual noise, right? If you had things that were in contrast, right? If you had a sword or a trumpet that was here that didn't necessarily move your speech forward, that also had to do with it. The quality of the sound, if the sound came out bad, or if I was straining to listen to you, these are all areas that a point or two would come off. The visual, the sound, even the position, right? How close and how far you are from your audience says something. Some of you may have had the camera down here and you're talking down to your audience. Some of you are talking up a little bit, or is it eye to eye? All of these things are tools to accentuate and move your speech forward. What you wear, the colors that you wear, et cetera, are all opportunities to communicate. And if you took advantage of all of those things to move your speech forward, that's great, without it creating noise. So those are the broad strokes. I could go on for a long time about that, but remember, we're in a heightened position as speakers, we're in a heightened position as leaders, And we have to, in my theory, I think that we have to step up to the plate to be better than just average. So I've worked with many people in the industry, and I think even they would say, hey, that are really good in their positions, but I don't think that they would say that they're excellent speakers. Out of the 58,000 speeches that I've heard, even I would say that most of the time, even this speech here is not a perfect speech. Right? And we're not necessarily striving for perfection, but as far as me being an evaluator, I have to take a look at the areas of improvement in order for us to be better at what we do. So I hope this helps. Again, I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for listening and take a little moment out of this. I hope this clears up for anybody who has questions, and I'm going to try to get back to people as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a good day.